Hello guys, welcome to the Geography online class. Okay, today we are going to continue on the topics that we've been covering. So we had just finished erosional processes, looking at river processes, and also we looked at marine processes. And by now, since you guys are having a recess, I hope you've been looking at that. So we are going to go straight into the next topic that we are supposed to cover, which is wind action in deserts. Okay, so please, at the end of the video, maybe in your comments in the WhatsApp groups, you can maybe tell me if you are facing any challenges with this video, but we are going to try our best and to ensure that everyone will be able to understand what's going to happen. So as an introduction, you will see that in hot desert regions, we find very low rainfall, and this is easy for us because we are we have two different climates. We have the savanna and we have a desert climate. So if you're going to the side of Swakopmund, you see deserts. So that means the amount of rainfall that we expect each and every year is lowered. But however, we have high temperatures. That means also we have high evaporation. So that this basically suggests that the kind of evaporation or transportation processes that we're going to have will not have much to do with rivers, because we don't have a lot of rains, though we do have some rivers. So in desert regions, we have some occasional storms, as you can see from the sorry, my mouse is disappearing. Okay, so as you can see that we have some occasional storms with a heavy rainfall, and which may cause erosion. But the main agent of erosion, transportation, and deposition in desert regions is wind. Okay, right. Then wind erosion and the features it produces. It's because we have erosion. We have been talking about erosion for quite some time, and most of the things we talk about how it erodes a certain area, and after it is eroded, we also talk about what are the landforms that are formed from this erosion. And we basically also look into the transportation, how the materials are transported in river processes. So the erosion, now we have abrasion, it's the first one. And if you remember very well, in river processes, abrasion was basically when the particles that are being carried by the river, they hit the banks or the bed of the river. Okay, but abrasion in this sense, now we are talking about particles that are being carried by the wind. So very small particles of rocks are hit against the rock surfaces, which lead to the formation of some characteristic features of deserts like zoogens, rock pedestals, and the others. So we are saying that whatever the wind is carrying, that when it hits the rocks, it can now lead to erosion, which we call abrasion. So it's basically the load of the wind, what the wind is carrying, that will then produce the different features like zoogens, rock pedestals, and the others. We'll look deep into these three at a much later stage. Okay, just now. Okay, the next thing we'll look at is erosion, which we call deflation. So deflation, basically what it does is the wind comes with a lot of force. It has a lot of energy. Therefore, what it does, it begins to carry out sand. It carries sand from a certain area. And as it continues to do that, that area where the sand is being taken from, there will be a development of a depression. So if you see here, it's saying the depressions are formed when wind blows away waste of rock to distant areas. The movement of particles causes the surface to get lowered and forms depression. So we have some kind of depressions that will be formed. So that's another type of erosion that occurs. And attrition, if you remember attrition in river processes, this is basically when the load that is being carried by the river, they strike against each other. So in this sense, attrition is when the rock particles that are being carried by the wind rub against each other. And when they do that, they weigh it down and break down into smaller particles, which we call attrition. Okay. All right. Now, features produced by the wind erosion. Features produced by wind erosion. So we said we have what we call rock pedestals. So maybe before I start explaining this, I should maybe show you a picture of a rock pedestal. So these are rock pedestals. That's how a rock pedestal looks like. So you see that we have an erosion that is occurring, faster erosion occurring closer to ground. And then we have, so it becomes narrow in the ground, but then it becomes bigger as you go up. And if here you see another rock pedestal, this one shows layers of resistant and less resistant. We call them soft rocks. And as you always see, the bottom will have deeper erosion, and then the softer rocks are actually the ones that are eroded faster. We have seen this when we're talking about headlands and bays. So rock pedestals. So when the wind attacks big rocks in the desert, it abrades, this is basically abrasion, these big rocks, and lead to the formation of sculptures or strange looking shapes like the one you just seen now. So some of these shapes look like pedestals. So there's something that is called a pedestal. In this sense, the rocks are forming that pedestal shape. Hence, it is called rock pedestals. So because wind abrasion is limited mainly to the area close to the ground, the large rocks are often eroded at their base. So we are saying that wind erosion is limited to the area that is in this region here, in these regions here. So we are saying that so there will be more erosion in these sections here than there will be in these sections here. That's what we are talking about. Okay. Right. So abrasion will be limited. This abrasion will be limited to okay. This abrasion will be limited to the area mainly that is close to the ground. Okay. All right. So large rocks are often eroded their bases. Okay. So these rocks, so you've seen in the other diagram that we had, in this diagram here, that it consists of less resistant rock layers, and then we have resistant rock layers. In our class, we usually call these softer rocks, and these ones resistant rocks. Okay, so as the wind, so these rocks consist of layers of soft and resistant rocks, and obviously, as the wind swirls around the rocks, the softer rocks are worn away faster than the resistant rocks. Okay. Then the second landform that is formed from this is the zoogen. The zoogens. So I want to show you a picture of how zoogens look like. So in these zoogens, let me maybe basically explain from here. What happens is that we have cracks that is caused by weathering. So in the beginning, we just have a flat surface. We don't have these gaps or ridges or depressions or trenches. So we have a surface that is flat, but then there will be cracks that are in these surfaces that are caused by weathering. So what happens is that when the wind is coming with force and it's carrying some particles, this wind will begin to deepen and widen these cracks. Okay? But while that is happening, the softer areas will be eroded or eaten out much faster. and the resistant regions will be left as ridges. So these ridges are now what we call zoogens, as you can see here. So these ridges are the ones that we call zoogens. So to just say it again, we're saying that there should be cracks caused by weathering, and these cracks are now widened by the erosional processes, which is mainly abrasion. Okay, as these cracks are widened, then we have a formation of trenches. But why is it that this one is higher and this one is lower? Because in this region we have a softer region, so the softer rocks are worn away fast, and the resistant rocks remain standing as what? As ridges. And they can go to a height of what? Of 3 to 30 meters, actually very high. So if you look into this diagram here, this one is a more realistic diagram, like how you would see it in real life. It's just that in this case you can only see one zoogen, and then the other regions have been what? Eroded away. But that is basically what we mean by zoogens. So I've basically explained what is happening in this. I will send you these notes. You will see them and you write notes from. You make your own notes from them. The third one is yadang. So yadang and zoogens, in most cases, people find it difficult to distinguish them because they look like they are the same. But then it's the formation now that you need to understand. So in yadangs, what we have is that our layer will be having some adjacent or alternate layers of soft and resistant rock that are vertical. So if I call this is the resistant rock, and this one will be the softer rock. So we are in these regions, mostly in the limestone regions. So what happens is that we might not have a crack, but the mere fact that we have these layers of resistant and soft rock vertical like that, when the erosion is going to take place, it will erode these layers here fast. So that is how the yadangs form. But in the way you look at them, it looks like they are like zoogens. But the difference is that if you look at this, the ridge is continuous. And also the trenches are continuous. And we have what? Layers, vertical layers of resistant and soft rocks. Okay, so these features differ from zoogens in the sense that they are alternate layers of hard and soft rocks that are lying vertical, of which if you look into zoogens, the layers are lying horizontal. All right. So then they tend to be, their height can be up to more than 15 meters in height. Okay. So in a more realistic picture, you see them looking like this. So it won't be as perfect as, because this is what we draw like in a model that is drawn by humans, but this is how it really looks like in real life. Okay. Then the third thing on erosion is depressions or deflation hollows. I've already explained this. It's when the wind blows away sand from an area, and this leaves behind a depression or a hollow. Okay. So basically what we'll be having, maybe, let me do this. What we'll be having, let me find something to draw, All right. So this is our land. We have sand. So what happens is the wind comes, it begins to blow. Let's say this is our wind. So as it comes, it begins to blow this region here away. So as the sand particles are going, what begins to happen is that we will have a development of a hollow here. So eventually, if you look at it now, in the end, we are going to have something like that forming. We're going to have something like this. Okay, so this is what we call a deflation hole. It's called a deflation hole. So in some areas, this hollow can go deep, reaching water-carrying rocks underneath here. So it can go deeper, and then it reaches what the rocks that are carrying water. Can reach the rocks that are carrying water here, and then when when that happens, this becomes like a what? Becomes like an oasis or a swamp. Okay, good. So let me go back to this. All right. So let me delete this stuff so that it doesn't confusion. All right. Stuff. Okay, so this one is a more realistic view of a deflection hole. So you can see there is a hole that was formed here. It's not that one. That was basically maybe something like a river or some sort. But we have a depression there. So that's what we call a deflection hole. So it basically occurs when the wind takes or carries away the sand from here and deposits outside, and it forms a hole right there. Sorry. Okay. All right. Okay. Then we also have another kind of a landform that is formed, and this forms when wind has carried out all the lighter materials. What remains are the rocks that were not carried, because remember, for the wind to carry these large pebbles, it needs to have enough energy. So in this case, there is not enough energy for this to be carried out. So only the softer ones are carried out. Then what we have is we have a pavement. Sometimes they call it a rag in some books, or desert, rocky deserts in some books. But in our books, we are going to call it a desert pavement. So we basically have rocks that remain lying, or heavier materials that stay behind when the lighter material has been taken away by the wind. Okay. All right. Then that is it with the landforms that are formed by erosion. Now we have landforms that are created by wind deposition. Remember, whenever there is erosion, there is transportation, and then from transportation, there is deposition. Basically, transportation, we know the modes of transportation. In wind, we have saltation, and saltation is basically when the wind carries a particle and then it drops it. So it's not able to carry it for longer periods, but it just lifts it up and drops it later, lifts it and drops it. And then we have those that are carried in suspension, the particles that are carried longer periods. So they travel longer distances. Those are the fine particles. In this case, we don't have solution now, because solution only exists if we have water that is involved. And unfortunately, I don't think wind has enough strength to push rocks. So we will not have traction in this case. So we basically talk about saltation and suspension when you're talking about what? Transportation by wind processes, okay? All right, then then when this transportation is occurring, there has to be at the end, we look at what? Deposition. And so the deposition, it can then come up with, so deposition along with transportation can now come up with other landforms that we're going to look at now. So huge amounts of desert dust is lifted into the atmosphere, okay, and carried for long distances before it can be deposited, right? Okay. Okay. So sand dunes are created when sand is deposited. So we have what we call sand dunes. It's one of the landforms that are formed when there is deposition. So dunes will only form when there is some salt. This was supposed to be salt. So correct this one. It's supposed to be salt, not soak. Okay. So there's some sort of obstacle that catches the sand and allows it to build up into a dune. So there must be an obstacle. In most cases, this can be a bush or a shrub, or it can be a rock. So what happens is that the sand particles will begin to be deposited around that shrub. So we can have, maybe we have a stone here, And then what we're having is that the wind is carrying materials. So as it reaches the stone, it has to go around the rock. So what happens is that the wind comes with the material and then it goes around the rock. So what will begin to happen is we'll begin to have depositions that will happen in all these regions. Sorry. We are going to have depositions happening all over. And then these depositions, in most cases, they end up now forming what we call a dune. So this dune will look like this. To have like a horns, and then it looks like that. So that rock you will no longer see it. So these ones, it's a bit steeper on this side. Okay, and then it's steep here, and then it's gentle here. So this side here is called the windward side, and this guy's side is going to be called the leeward side. So wind will be coming now, blowing over, going along this region. So you will see that we have what we call eddies, because when wind goes over this, it's like a mountain. When it comes here, is a sudden depression, so there'll be what we call eddy currents, but these are wind eddy currents, so therefore there's going to be erosion here also. That's why you see that there is a cutting of some sort here. And these two here are what we call the wands. We're going to have the wands, and these wands always point towards the direction of the prevailing wind. So wind is flowing in this direction. So these wands are towards the direction of the prevailing wind. Okay. All right. All right. So that's basically how a dune forms. So there are three types of dunes. We have pattern or crescent dune. So what I've just drawn here is like this, what we call a pattern dune. Then we have longitudinal safe dunes. You will see how they look like. And then we have star dunes. Okay. So let's go dig deep into these. Okay. Sorry for that. All right. You can ignore these blue lines for now. So we have pattern dunes. Let me show you a picture of how pattern dunes look like. And there they are. Okay. Right. Okay. So these are pattern dunes. So what happens is, in this case, the wind is coming from this direction. So the wind is coming in this direction. It's blowing in that direction. Ooh, what is that? Okay. So it's blowing in this direction, right? So there was an obstacle here. So it begins to deposit sand particles in this region. And then we have those ones forming here. So this is what I was saying is called the leeward side. The lee, handwriting here is difficult. Okay, it's fine. It's called the leeward. Okay, let's ignore this. It's called the leeward side. And then this one here is called the windward side. So we call it the windward side because that's where the wind is coming from. Leeward side is basically lee because it's steep. It's a steep slope. This one is a gentle slope. And these are our ones that are always pointing towards the direction of the wind, prevailing wind. So this one is a more realistic picture of our sand dune or our Bacham dune. That is simple. You can understand that one. All right. So what are we saying? They have a classic dune shape. Classic dune shape. All right. They form where there is a limited supply of sand, so the sand supply is not that much. Okay, and then there is a prevailing wind that is blowing in one direction for longer periods. Okay, and they lie at right angles to the direction of the prevailing wind. How you have to understand what we mean by lying at right angles to the direction of the prevailing wind. So let's go to the page so that we see. So the prevailing wind is going in this direction, right? And this dune is pointing that direction. So as you can see here, they are at right angles to each other. Yeah, that's what that statement means. Okay, all right. They form two horns that point toward the direction of the wind. So, okay, I've already explained that these horns are pointing that direction, which is the direction of what? It's the wind. All right. They have a gradual slope facing the windward side. So, like we said, this one is the windward side. So it's gradual. This slope is gradual. Okay, it's a gentle slope, and that is called the windward side. And they also have what? A steep slope on this side, which we call the leeward side. So that's what they are talking about here, right? And they can go as high as what? 30 meters. That is simple to understand. Okay, the second type of dune what we look at is the safe dune or the longitudinal dunes. So these ones, they are longer. So what happens is that they lie parallel to the wind direction. They are parallel to the wind direction, and they can be up to 120 kilometers. So the wind direction will be actually in this direction. So they are parallel to the wind direction. Okay. So wind is in that direction, and then these are our dunes. So you can see the kind of structure difference here. They are very long. So in terms of the distance, they can cover up to 160 kilometers long. But in terms of their height, it can cover up to 100 to 200 meters high. So you can look at the ones we have here. So these ones are safe dunes. So these are very, very common. They are very, very common dunes. Okay. All right. Hope you all understand. Then the last one is the star dunes. So star dunes, they occur due to the changes in the prevailing wind. So when the prevailing wind is always changing, constantly changing directions, it means that what will then be formed is something like this one. So a more realistic picture is that, because at some point the wind is coming through this direction, and then this one becomes the windward side, this one becomes the leeward side. At some point, the wind chooses to come through this direction. This one becomes the windward side, this one becomes the leeward side. At some point, it comes maybe through this direction. So what eventually forms is some kind of star. That's why it's called a star dune. So basically, that is what we have in this chapter. Okay, so we have looked at one, we looked at erosional processes, and we looked at their landforms. We also looked at deposition and transportation and their landforms. So if you look into your books, we've actually covered everything that needs to be covered under this section. If there is something that I left out, you can also just mention it. Okay, so this is the end of the chapter. And also as for your assignment, you're going to look at the check your progress exercise that is at the end of the chapter. Please don't ask me the page. You know the chapter we're looking at. So just go into that chapter. At the end of that chapter, look at the check your progress. Then you do that check your progress exercise. So submission, you answer you answer this exercise. Then you take a picture, a clear picture, please, and send it to the group, not to my not to my box, because I will be confused. Send it to the group. Okay. So even if you wait for others to send, and then you will see the answers, I will easily see the copy. So please, and also try to help yourself. Don't try to copy. Yeah? Just make sure you study on your own and try to answer in the best way you can answer. Okay. Okay. See you in the next topic. Thank you.